Sky Howdy, and welcome back to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio.
It's gonna get what?
I'm setting it back here so nobody sees it, and then I'll pick it
Well,
up.
actually it was, but now that.
Those are the fingerprints we pulled off Christie's rent-a-car this morning. Now already in place at the Bigfoot Museum. We're inside the Bigfoot Museum. And we're going to do a little interview with Harriet, who was the owner proprietor of the Bigfoot Museum, and also puts on the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference. There she is right now, talking to Robin. Just giving you a little quick look at how cool the interior on this place is. There's a whole bunch of little rooms and stuff, and they got all kinds of interesting things set up in them. We'll be referencing this map here shortly with all of these little stick pins all over it. And this one down here too. Down here. Get the sun on it. There we
That's what
go.
happened last time, remember?
Okay, I can do
They asked
that.
people to skip the flag.
This has to do with the flag thing, so she'll be showing this,
in Dallas.
or pointing to it at least. She's explaining it. And to give you a quick look here at a couple of the other rooms. They're just crammed full of all kinds of cool stuff, even in the hallways. Tree break poster, all sorts of evidence that researchers all over the area found. And just going to give you a quick look in this room here. Ooh, woolly mammoth leg bone. That's pretty cool. T-Rex teeth. There's all sorts of things in here, not only relating to Bigfoot, but other cryptozoology, any kind of related field type stuff. Smoky crab tree. Picture of Smokey with Harriet. There's Smokey. Of course, this relates to the beast of Boggy Creek.
Oh, she's in front of my face. Why didn't I see that? Okay.
Yeah, you just don't want to get that.
Right.
There's Smokey.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Harriet at Boggy Creek. She's been everywhere.
Okay,
So I'm not going to show you the whole place. No way. You got to drag your butt here to see it. So, but here's some cool stuff. Look at this hand cast. This is awesome. Another one, 1970, Washington, collected by Ivan Marks. Hand cast, April 21, 1994. Biscuit Ridge in the Blue Mountains of Washington. That's like right near where I live. Another one from the Blue Mountains of Washington. Again, right near where I live. This one is interesting. How many of you knew this one? Currently unpopular in the U.S.
He's already got one programmed to go live at
Who is it?
8 o'clock. Hey, Scott. But what happens is, there's a live chat, so you can talk to people while the video's playing on Sunday night, and then after that, it stays on. I've got a bunch of them for them. Like there's a new
Motorola?
That's when I did that one, where we did 43 minutes.
This iPhone, sometime, yeah, I do Android.
What type is it? What type is it?
S20.
And there's the line of tightrope walk steps in the snow. Footprints 32 kilometers or 20 miles from the cave that was investigated. This whole thing with the cave, Igor has a book out on it, which is still barely possible to get in the U.S. I got a copy of it. It's very interesting. They had just all kinds of scientists and local officials and government people and everything involved in that one. And there's a Yeti action figure. Yetis are not white, they are reddish brown. President Teddy Roosevelt. Famous encounter. President Teddy Roosevelt tells the Bauman story, 1850. And I'll read you this one. The first eyewitness account of Bigfoot-like creature in America was published by President Theodore Roosevelt in The Wilderness Hunter. Roosevelt was so impressed by a hunter named Bauman's goblin story, he included it in his Tome of Tales. During a hunting trip in the 1850s, Bauman and a friend encountered a beast walking on two legs that ransacked their campsite. After the creature left, the pair decided to cut their trip short. Bauman's companions started to pack while Bauman fetched the beaver traps, but when he returned, he found his friend dead, with 4 fang marks on the throat and a broken neck. Bauman never got a good look at the beast, and the violent encounter runs counter to most modern descriptions of the gentle giant. Nonetheless, Roosevelt's recounting stands as one of the earliest depictions of a Sasquatch-like entity in the U.S. And it does not mention in the short version here that when it showed up at their camp the first time, they shot at it. Gee, wonder why it got aggressive. Okay, let's go visit with Harriet.
Welcome everybody, this is Harriet McFeely. She is the owner, curator, and operator of the Bigfoot Museum in Nebraska. And we've got her here today because we wanted her to kind of give us a little bit of insight on what goes on at the museum. She also has the annual Bigfoot conference in Nebraska that is here every year for the last 5 years. And is getting bigger every year. We encourage everybody to come and check it out.
Thank you. Well, welcome to the museum and welcome to Nebraska.
Keep going.
Okay, I would like to just take you on a short little tour, give you a glimpse of our museum. We've been open for 3.5 years now and we're growing almost daily. So if you would like to follow me, we'll start on our journey right after I show you our map. This is Nebraska, and you can see all of the red pins. Those are sightings here. And that map is getting a little bit bigger every day. There's one thing I would just like to point out, which is very unusual, I think. If you can see these blue pins here, there's a few across the state. Those are places where the horses have had their manes braided. And we think it might possibly be by the Bigfoot.
That would not surprise me a bit. I personally have reports of that from several places that have been on my channel. We've shown pictures and video of it. Yep. Everything from New Mexico down into Texas and Mississippi, all over the South.
Can you add those to mine as follow-up evidence?
I don't know. I can try and find them. This stuff is scattered over 200 episodes of my show that I've done.
Okay. Do you want me to get you a chair so you can sit?
No.
You sure?
Okay, let's go on to the next spot. Let's show that horsehair braiding.
Oh, okay.
There's actually, if you guys want to go back and check out Bigfoot Outlaws, episode 14 or 15, I believe. I was on with a lady that owns 2 horse ranches, one of them down in Florida, and she was having problems with the horse's hair being braided. And these aren't little cheap horses either, they're extremely expensive show horses. So this kind of stuff is happening all over the place. There's an interesting picture while we're waiting. There's Harriet with that Bob Gimlin guy.
Yes.
And you can see, I got a nice picture of a teepee structure up there. You got some skulls and stuff. This place is just so packed full of cool stuff to look at. Y'all got to show up and check it out. There's Harriet with the ground glyph there. Who's that with you?
That's my husband, Dick.
There's her husband. And so they're going around doing this stuff for quite some time. And as you can see, there's posters and stuff like this, compilations of pictures with notes on them to let you know the context and stuff all over this place. This museum is just amazing how much stuff that she has in here. So let's go see that horsehair braiding.
Follow me. Okay, this is an exhibit that we have about the braided horses in the United States. Most of these horses that are braided are females, and it's usually their mane that is braided. Occasionally, a male is braided, but it's not his mane. It's almost always his tail. I don't know what that means. But this is a really good example of one of the braids, because a Native American told me that this braid through the center of the braid to the Native Americans signifies God. And then the braid on this side signifies a man, and this is a woman. And in the Bible, in Ecclesiastics, it says where 3 strands are braided together, that 3 are stronger than 1. So that is very significant to the Indians, the Native Americans. And so the other thing that he told me that was really important, I think, is when their mane is like about this long, that they braid down about 3/4 of the way, and then they tie a knot, and that knot is so tight you cannot get it untied. And when they get down about that low, then they start making loops like this. And when they make the loops, then they start braiding back up. So he said that of all the braids in here, that is the very best example. So the other braids that we have here that are really significant is that Dr. Igor Burtsev from Moscow also discovered this phenomenon of the braided horses. And so this picture on the top is Dr. Burtsev from horses in Siberia. And when he got back to Moscow, the first thing he ran into right here is braided horses again. So Dr. Burtsev is investigating the braiding horses around Russia and Siberia and all the countries that are around there. And then Don Monroe, who is right there, he...
And look at Don. There's Don.
He is investigating the horses in the United States. He's been investigating braided horses for over 40 years now. And now he will hold his hand out like this, and he will have a picture of a horse, and he'll say, for example, this horse is from Alabama. And then he holds his other hand out, and he said, and this horse, this is the mane, the braid. And so he has both pieces. And I personally thought that was pretty good evidence.
The uniformity of all this stuff happening across many different states and even different countries and continents tells you there is something to this phenomenon. Same thing with the tree structures. They make the same kinds all over the world. That's not random.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And we got some more cool pictures there.
This picture on the bottom are horses that were braided in Australia. And they are both females, and you can see the braids on their neck. And these two are unusual because they also have on their forehead is braided on both of these horses. So again, and Australia is an island.
Yeah.
So they have horses that were brought hundreds of years ago by the English, but they have got Bigfoot there too.
Yowies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a couple guests from Australia on before, and as you guys may recall, she just referenced Dr. Igor Burtsev. He was a guest on episode 100.
So.
Okay. Well, let's go look at some other interesting stuff that has to do with horsehair braiding. Again, remember we were talking about uniformity from place to place to place. Uniformity of horsehair braiding all across the continent and the world. The uniformity of tree structures. We're going back out again. And they got a special high security building to store this stuff in. So we're going to head over there. Just follow the Bigfoot tracks until we get there. We're following Robin. And so the adventure begins. How adventurous. Now this building's so high security, I wasn't even allowed in here until now. This is the first time I've seen it.
No, my ankle.
What are we looking at here?
You absolutely can.
There is a flag. Notice anything about the flag? Do those braids look familiar?
I mean, tiny ones, you can point to and two, because those are done by little people.
So tell us about the flag here, Harriet. Where did this whole weird thing come from?
This flag came from Garrison, Nebraska, which is only about 20 or 25 miles from Lincoln, which is our state
So
capital.
it doesn't move.
And Garrison is a little tiny town. This flag was braided overnight on the Sunday of Memorial Weekend. So they only had about maybe 10 hours, give or take a little, to braid this entire flag.
So what makes you think that, first of all, who's tearing up and braiding flags? And if did this only happen one time?
No, it didn't. Originally, they were going to burn this flag. That's what they do with the American flags when they're desecrated. And fortunately, I talked them into not burning it. And there was about 14 that I have all together, but they're all around that same area. They're all.
So wait. Now this has happened over and over and over. And part of the reason we don't have any knowledge of this or evidence is because protocol requires a desecrated flag has to be burned. So they've been destroying the evidence, not realizing they've been destroying evidence. And this wasn't just happening 1 year, correct?
I don't know how long of a time span it has been, but what they always thought was that the wind did it, and the other thing that they said was the horses would go out and roll around in the pasture or in the corral, and that's how they got their manes braided.
We know that isn't the truth. There's a big
No.
difference between wind braids and snags on barbed wire fences and those hair braids in there. And we've
Absolutely.
already done really long, extensive episodes on that, so we got that one covered. But the interesting thing here is why tear up a flag and then braid it? There's plenty of other things that they could braid in nature. Why would they be doing something like that?
You know what, that's a really good question, and not only myself, but a lot of people have thought about that. And some of the people seem to think, at first I thought it was like vandalism, but then I've changed my mind because the Bigfoot are really, really artistic. And if you look at this, you will see some of the things that they have done. And I don't think, because they have a history, they don't destroy things. They're not like a bear that goes into your camp and just trashes everything. They don't do that. And so a lady that was a guest at the museum is the first one that spotted this. She came to me, it was exactly 12 days after this flag had been braided. And she wasn't even a Bigfoot lady. She just came for an outing. And anyway, so she went through my whole museum, and when people come to where the braided horses are, I always go over and join them so I can kind of explain, you know, the facts of it, because otherwise, if you look at it, you don't know what it is.
Right.
And so I had explained that to her, and then she came out and walked through the second part of the museum, and then she came right back in, and she said, I have a story to tell you. And I said, what? So she told me the background of the flag that had been just raised the day before for Memorial Weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And then they went out on Sunday morning, and this is what they found. And it turned that whole town upside down completely.
So when did you get a suspicion this was really actually kind of Bigfoot related? Was it just because you saw that it had been torn up and braided, or?
No, you have the order wrong. What happened was the lady came out and walked through the second part of the museum, and then she came back in to see me again, and she told me a little bit about the town, and then she talked about this flag that had been destroyed in Garrison, Nebraska. And at the time, you know, they were talking about vandals and, you know, they hoped they caught them and all that. And then she said, the one thing that the man that owned the flag, he was her cousin. The one thing that they both thought was really weird was that the flag had been torn in strips, and at the end of the strips, the flag was braided, very obviously braided, and at the end of the braid, there was a knot on each braid, and the knot was so tight that the soldiers that were in town for the Memorial Day weekend could not get the knots untied. They had planned on untying the knots and kind of trying to spread the flag out so it looked halfway decent, but they couldn't untie it. And so then this lady, by this time she was yelling at me, and she said, I had a stick for a pointer, and she said, in fact, she said, that flag is braided exactly like those horse braids that you have over there in the other room. And when she said that, I was so shocked I thought I was going to faint. And so she kept telling me about it, and the more she talked, I knew it wasn't the wind. I knew the horses, or the flag, was still up in the air when they found it, and they were identical. The braids were absolutely identical. She was right.
So these flags were still in position, they were just somehow ripped and braided.
Yes, and they were about 15 feet up
Right.
on Memorial Weekend. So, you would have to have a ladder, or you'd have to be really tall, or what I think they took the flag down, and I think they braided it, and then they put it back up. And the reason I thought that is when you put a flag up and it's where it's supposed to be, then they make a knot kind of like a number 8, like this, and then they tie it. And that's how they do those flags. Well, when they went out to take it down, instead of in an 8 that was laying flat, the 8 went like this, up and down, up and down, up and down. And see, they didn't even catch that. And that's the first thing I thought of. That's not the way the flag was put up. So obviously
Somebody took it down and put
somebody
it back.
lowered it. And so in the beginning, I thought that possibly the grass was really dewy that morning. And I thought if they lowered it, possibly they might have stepped on the end of the flag. And so this would be the end right here. And so I went through all of these little end pieces, and I thought possibly there might be either a smudge of mud or dirt, or maybe even grass stain on the end of the flag, but there wasn't any. So obviously they didn't lower it completely to the ground.
Now the other thing that's interesting is this is just vandals tearing up flags. Why hoist the flag back up again? And if you're tearing up the flag to desecrate it because you're enraged about it or something, why would you braid it?
That's a good question, but the clincher was the braids. She was right. They were exactly like the horse braids. And the thing is, they are braided all the way down. And then right here, there's the big knot. And as I showed you with the horse braiding, they tie a knot and it's so tight and hard that you can't get it untied. And the soldiers that were in the cemetery that next day, they could not get the knots untied.
Right, so whoever tied those little knots at the end was very, very strong.
Yeah, and they're so tight. And the other thing I wondered, if you tie a knot and you even put water on it, it's kind of like the material shrinks up,
Yep.
so it makes it tighter.
Yeah.
And I was looking at that, and the only thing I wondered was it hadn't rained or anything, so I wondered if maybe they tied the knot so tight and maybe spit on it to make it wet. So as it got drier, it'd be almost like shrinking.
Yeah.
So it would make it even tighter yet.
Let's get in close on these and you can continue to tell us the story while we take a closer look on the braids themselves here.
Okay, I'm gonna get my pointer because it's easier to show you. This is one of the main braids here. There's the knot, really, really, really tight. But if you look closely, there's a little string here, and that string is braided. And then this string right here, that is braided also. And then there's a knot right there. It's a little tiny one, and from that knot, it's braided all the way down, and then there's loops on the bottom, exactly like they did on the horsehair. So that's braided. Here's another braid. That's a little bit longer. This is another braid. It's about, I'd say, 4 inches long, and if you can look closely, right about maybe 1/4 of an inch from the bottom, there is a little knot there.
Let's see if we can get in closer on this. Does not focus. You can barely make it out, but you can see it.
Yep.
That's very tiny too. You're looking at
Yes.
something there that's, you know, thinner than a shoelace.
Way thinner. And this is the end of the flag, and some of these wispy ends, like right there, you can see it's braided a ways down, and there's a knot right there. Some of these, not all of them, but they're braided on the ends.
Hopefully we get in close enough so you folks can see that. But again, the question you got to be asking at this point is, if you're just going for ripping up and desecrating a flag, why are you putting all this extra effort into all
Right.
this braiding and
That's
knot
right.
making it? That makes no sense whatsoever.
And like I said before, I personally think that they are artistic. I think it was a work of art for them. I think it was possibly a gift to us, because they didn't look at it as vandalism. I think they looked at it that this was a beautiful thing that they made. And so this one, this is my absolute favorite right here. You can see it was torn just like the others, but right here, this is my favorite braid right there. It's only about maybe 4 inches long, and that whole braid was braided in the white of the stripe. And when they got down to the end, they took a single red thread and they went around the braid 3 or 4 times, and then they tied it in a knot right there. So that was always my favorite one. I don't know why. I just liked it.
Well, let's get in close on that and give you guys a better look at it. And I can see why she likes it, because this is very cool looking.
And it's the only one on this particular flag.
How about that, huh? You can see all that intricate thread work they did there, tying all that red thread around it again. And again, you know, like, why go to all this trouble if you're just desecrating a flag? It makes no sense.
I agree. I don't think that's what they did. And so then, on this next one that was torn, it was braided into the top piece, and then this whole thing is braided really, really, really tight. And when you get right here, that is a knot, and that is so hard. I thought originally that they had wrapped the material around a rock or, you know, a piece of concrete or something, and then made it really tight, but it wasn't. That is all the actual material. And then you can see coming down here, there's other little wispy ones that are braided. There's one right there. And there's a braid way up high, right there. And so we laid this flag out on a big table so we could really examine it. And I walked around and around and around this flag. It seemed like 40 times. And every time I walked around, I saw something that I had missed before. And so I cataloged everything that I found on this. So this will soon be 2 years come this Memorial Weekend of 2022. And so last year, when this flag had been braided for a year, I got a phone call from the man that gave the flag to me originally, and he started off the conversation. He said, "Harriet, you'll never guess what happened. And I said, what? He said, we got another flag. And I said, are you kidding me? He said, no. So I am heading straight back to Garrison again. And I got there and I looked at the flag. It was identical, absolutely identical to this one. And this little bar is on the corner of the street in Garrison. It's the only place that's still open in town. But right next to the bar, there is a gravel road. And just across the gravel road, there are 3 cement elevators. The bottom is cement up 8 feet. And from the 8 feet up, that elevator, the 3 of them are 100 feet tall. And on the one that was closest to the bar, it was 100 feet tall, and then on top of that, there was a flagpole that was 20 feet tall. And so, I'm not sure of the day. It was either the day before Memorial Day or the day after, or possibly Memorial Day. It was one of those 3 days. And so the man that was the manager of the elevator, they check those all the time, the temperature, to make sure the grain is okay. So when he went to check the elevator, he saw the flag 120 feet up in the air. And so he went all the way to the top, took it down, and he took it to the man that had the bar. And he said, here's a flag. Here, you take it. I don't want that flag. You take it. It's, okay, yeah, take that. He said, I'm out of here. And I don't know if it was superstition or what, but he was afraid of the flag. So he gave it to the man that owned the bar, who called me, and I went down. And so when I got home, I was looking at this flag and writing everything down about it. And I got to this row, and I couldn't believe it. There was another braid absolutely identical to that one. It was braided on the end. It was the white material of the flag, and it had a red string around it, just like the first one. That, I just couldn't believe it. It was almost 1 year to the day that the other one was braided. And so I couldn't stop thinking about that, because what kind of a coincidence is that they're both have that identical braid? And then I got to thinking, I wonder if they did that because they knew I would recognize it. And I didn't tell anybody because I thought it was so conceited to think that. But the more I thought about it, I kept thinking that. I couldn't get it out of my head. So about a month later, I had a couple that came to my museum, and they liked it. And I showed them the braids of the horse's hair. And then I brought them out, and I showed them this flag. And I told them about this little tiny braid that was my favorite. And I said, and now I've got a second one. It's got the same braid on it. And the man was standing right next to me, and he said, that's a marker. And I said, I don't know what you mean by that. And he said, it's like an artist, if they paint a picture, their signature, that's their logo or their marker. He said, that's his logo, that's his marker. And I said, whew, I never thought of that before. And so instantly, his wife was standing right next to him, and she spoke up and she said, that's absolutely right. She said, this is my husband. He's a deputy sheriff. He's worked for the sheriff's office for 20-some years. And she said, and I am the county attorney in that same county. And she said, it's definitely a marker. She said, for example, in your town, if you have 10 burglaries, and each one of the houses that had been broken into, that they all broke in the patio door or the basement window or something. She said, that is the burglar's marker. And she said, if we catch whatever burglar did a house, she said, we've solved all the crimes because he's got the same marker on every single one. So if you solve one, you got them all. And she said, so that is definitely a marker because it's identical to the first one. And she said, and I think you're right. He did it because I'm the one that had studied the flag for way over a year. And she said he knew that you would recognize that. So
you got these wind socks that are hanging right next to you and behind you. What's the deal with that? Where'd they come from?
well, when this story hit the newspaper in York, Nebraska, it was right on the front page. It was color. And the flag, they were holding that there was a couple men standing on one end holding it, and a man on each end holding the top. And it was such an unusual story that it hit the AP for the newspapers. And so then that story and the article went all over the whole United States. And so this lady lived in Oregon, and it was about October that it came out in her newspaper. And she thought it was so unusual, so she cut it out and put it on a bulletin board in her kitchen. And about a few days after that, her son has a company that makes wind socks. And so he would have like a big 4x4 on each side of the back of his fire engine red pickup. And he'd have wind socks hanging up there. So he walked in the house and he said, Mom, what are you doing to my wind socks? She said, I didn't do anything. He said, yes, you did. She, no, I didn't. She went out. There were his wind socks were braided. 2 of them. And so she sent them to me. And this one, you can see, it's the same way. It's braided down. There's some braids right there you can see. On the bottom, there's loops. It's exactly like the flag. So this one, and then this one here, you can see the braid right there. And there's a hard knot. And there's the loops. It's the same. So she sent it to me, and I thought, wow, man, whoo, that was something.
Whoever that artist is, it's the same one because they're tagging all their artwork.
Yeah.
So you know it's the same one doing it.
Except it's 1,000 miles apart.
Ah, so they travel a lot too.
So this flag came from Garrison, Nebraska, almost in the center of the state by Lincoln, our capital.
Right.
And this one came from Oregon, 1,000 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, about 10 days after that, she calls me back. And people always start their sentence with me like this. They say, guess what? I can never guess. So I said, what? She said, I got 2 more wind socks. And I said, are you kidding me? She said, no. So, where'd it go? Oh, here it is. No, this one. 2 weeks later, she sent me this flag. It's exactly the same. It's braided, it's got the loops, it's got knots, it's got everything. So that was number 3, right there. And see, when they say the wind did it, this is what the wind does. It just frays like that.
Right.
It doesn't knot it or
No,
nothing.
doesn't braid and knot.
No loops, no knots, no braids, nothing. So that one, and then she also sent me this one down here. And it's the same. And you can see there's the knots, there's the loops, it's the same. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And I would really like to show you one thing. I started writing about these flags. I thought I was going to write maybe 2 or 3 sentences so I could hang it up on the wall with the pictures. The 2 or 3 sentences turned into 145 pages of a book because I investigated it for over a year. But I wanted to show you really fast a picture in here that is so important to me. So if you look, this is the picture that came out in the newspaper in York, Nebraska. This was the original. It was colored. And so when we copied it, we had it made in black and white. But you can see where it's braided. And so then a woman that we know, she is a research analyst. And so she was checking out flags. I was curious if there was any other like this. So she sends me a phone call and she said, Harriet, you'll never guess what I have. Of course, I couldn't. And so she sent me this picture. And if you look, the flag is braided exactly the same. So if you go over to York, the heading on the newspaper says, something, May 24th, 2020, tore the flag into small strips and braided them. So then she sent me this picture. Look at where it come from. Washington, D.C. flag,
1917.
And here's what it says on the heading of the newspaper. A windstorm on January 16th, 1917, tore the flag into small strips. Tore the flag into small strips
And
and braided them. So that one, that I just about went crazy.
Okay, I'm thinking there's a pattern to this.
I think so, but I should show you one more little fast picture here that is really good. These are the pictures of the braids up close. And if you look, they're exactly like ours. Exactly. So is that one. There's the knot right there. It's exactly like ours. Now, this flag was flying above the House of the Representatives, the Senate in the United States. That's the Senate building behind, 1917.
How about that, folks?
So personally, I would kill to have that flag, and I would bet money they probably burned it.
Yeah, there's virtually no chance that's still around.
No, but
they took a picture of it first. Yay!
yay! I'm so happy. That's exactly like ours. Exactly, absolutely, exactly. I couldn't even imagine it.
So that just can't be random coincidence, especially when you're looking at over a century ago.
Yeah. And at the Senate that night, she went back and did some more research. They were having like a dinner party for the senators and their wives, because 1917, that was right when World War was getting going.
Yeah, World War One.
And so that was the first time that a lot of them had been out. So they had their dinner party, and the guests were there till about maybe 1 o'clock in the morning. And between 1 o'clock and maybe 7 or 8, when people arrived at the Senate building, this the first flag, really, it was already done. It was braided. So it had to have been done sometime between about 1 in the morning till about 7, a time frame.
So they didn't have a whole ton of time to do this either. They had to be fairly quick about it. You got to sneak in, take the flag down while nobody sees you doing it, tear it into strips, quickly braid it, put your signature on it, string it back up again, and escape with no one seeing you do it.
That's right.
That sounds really difficult.
Yeah, but what if you had maybe 2 or 3?
Okay.
Maybe one person did this strip and one that, or
So you got a whole team that are running around sneakily
Possibly.
doing this. This is kind of making it hard to believe humans could be involved in this at this point, Harriet.
I know it, and the braiding is so intricate, and I can guarantee you, you cannot duplicate these braids. And on the horsehair braids, you certainly can't, you just can't do it. I don't know how it works, but they do it.
Yep, we actually took a close look at that too, and it looks to us like there's actually 2 different things going on there. You've got the regular horsehair braids that we're talking about, but there's also these tiny little micro braids that they sometimes call fairy knots. Mm-hmm. And again, those are attributed to supernatural interference that specifically some of the little people like to braid horsehair. And you can actually tell the difference between them, which is even more surprising.
But I also think, don't forget, when you say little people, when those Bigfoot start out and their kids are little, they're little, and they've got little teeny hands, and I think that is a skill that they have learned from their parents, from childhood to mom to grandma to whoever. And you know yourself, when you learn a skill, you don't forget it.
No. And if you practice, you get better and better and better.
It's just like riding a bicycle.
Yep. there is a difference between those types of knots though in the way they do it. And one of the things is the tiny, teeny, small size, like even a tiny human couldn't braid that small.
Yeah, I don't know.
And so that's a different separate thing we're not talking about right now. And also the braiding and how they do the knots looks different. This is uniform with all of the bigger horsehair main braids and stuff that we're seeing from all over the world, from all over the continent, all different states. They're all very uniform in the way they're doing this. So after you've seen a few of them, you can look at a picture of the horsehair
recognize
braid
it
and you can go,
like that.
oh, that one they just got caught on a fence. That one, somebody braided it. And that's the type that Bigfoot do.
That's right. And the other thing is that quite a few farmers come and they see this and they say, no, they were just out rolling around in the pasture or the corral. I used to have a horse. I
Yeah.
rode all the time. And I always, when I got through riding her, I always curried her down.
Yeah.
Really good, nice and clean. First thing she'd do is go out, lay down in the corral, da-da, 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 da-da. And then she would stand up and she had straw and hay and cockleburs and everything stuck to her hair.
Yeah.
And when you look at the horse braids that we have, that you looked at first, they are not dirty. They don't
No.
have one speck of grass or weeds or straw, and they're not even dusty.
No.
Not at all.
And these aren't random tangles of hair. These
No.
are actual braids and knots. And this is something that we pointed out when you had Researcher X on the show with her horse ranch. She isn't just some farmer that owns a horse. She breeds show horses. She has more than one ranch full of them. She knows everything there is to know about horses. And she looks at one and goes, this isn't natural. Something's doing this. Believe me, she can tell the difference.
You can. And you know, I've had other people that came into my museum, and I have to tell them about the braided horses, because if they don't understand that and they walk out and see this, it doesn't mean anything. They don't understand. And so I told that story so many times to people. And you know, we're close to the Platte River, and there's lots of farmers around us, and little farms and big. And every now and then I'm telling this story, and somebody will go, "Ah, I can't believe it. That's exactly like our horses." And this one lady told me she was living on their family farm, and she had lived there her whole entire life. And when she grew up and got married, she's still living on the same farm, and she still has horses. She still rides. And she said, that happened to our horses all the time. And my dad was always saying, how did that happen? You know, the horse came in braided, and she was an only child. And so I told her that, and she said, that's it. That's exactly the way my horse looked when it came in. And so that's how we ended up with the blue pins on the map, is people recognized the braids we have, that they were exactly like theirs.
Wow. And again, this goes back a long ways too, because all of this witch braids and fairy knots and all that kind of stuff, we're going back to Europe with that. That's where that first came around. And then as they came over here to North America, it was happening here too.
Yes.
And the whole time people have been going like, hey, we know what a hair tangle looks like. We know what their hair looks like when they rub it against a fence or something. That isn't it. Something's going on here. Something has fingers, and it's making these things in their mane. What's doing it? And of course, nobody has had an actual 100% solid explanation on it. Although nowadays that we're starting to actually pay attention to this stuff, people are leaning more and more toward there's an outside source doing this. Something with fingers is doing this. It's pretty clear. Because again, now we have the ability to send this information back and forth all over the world in a split second, which they didn't used to have, and they wouldn't center that much attention on horsehair braids in a newspaper article. So now people are getting a chance to actually look at this and go, wait a minute, this is going on all over the place. And at this point, we should take a break and go inside to where your big map of the Nebraska Triangle is and continue on with the rest of the story of the flag braiding here in Nebraska. So we'll be right back.
Get over here. Okay, well, I couldn't.
Oh God, there's a Bigfoot in here!
Yeah, this is Boomer.
That's Boomer.
He just moved here from
This
Colorado.
is one of the things you'll see all over the place when
Yeah.
you show up
No,
here.
but you know what, the Foots in Colorado must have been messing with him, because he's got like real Bigfoot energy all over him. I'm not even kidding you.
He does?
Yeah, like
Oh.
the real kind, not the maid.
Okay.
I just found this in the
It was
middle.
laying right there.
Okay, well, it wasn't on the floor a minute ago. And
Yeah.
I came in here, we were in here while you were filming. And then I came in here and it was over here. And it wasn't like in a bundle, it was laid out.
The only thing I know is if the flag or the band blew it off.
I have no
But it
idea.
doesn't look like it because it's not moving
Harriet
now.
was just saying this is a piece braid, traditional Native American thing.
This is the real thing right here. This is made out of, that's called sweetgrass. You see that?
Yep.
Well, it
And then
made its
see-
way to the middle of the room.
Yeah. Ooh, that's good. Gosh, I have so much company here. I should open a bed and breakfast.
I used to manage one.
As you can see, here's another example. They got a picture of braided sweetgrass. It's a traditional Native American thing, and maybe, who knows where they got it from.
Yeah,
Maybe they got it from somebody else to start with.
pretty much.
Hey, nice to meet you, dude.
Yeah, that's Boomer.
That's Boomer.
Yep.
Hey, Boomer.
He's about, he is, I
That's
think,
about
10
8.
feet tall.
Hmm? Yep.
So that's what we got. We were officially declared, I was the Bigfoot lady of Nebraska.
So she is officially the Bigfoot lady here in this state. There you go. Okay, hey, look at that big track cast. If you guys want to see all this other cool stuff, you need to get over here and look at it in person. Because I am not going to show you everything in this museum. There's way too much, we don't have enough time, and it's super cool. So get over here and take a look at it. And it's not just covering stuff in Nebraska. She's got stuff from all over the world. As you can see, little descriptions and talk about Java Man. There's Java Man's dome.
Just like I do.
Petrified wood. This guy was here last night. He was at the convention this weekend. Some more stuff.
Those are skulls from the original Lovelock Cave in Nevada.
Yep. The red-haired giants that got massacred.
Yeah, and they also have double rows of teeth.
Yep.
And also,
Nephilim.
this is the size of the skulls they found there. And these are some that are like our size. This is from the cave, this is ours. So you can see how much bigger they are.
Yeah. At
There's
least
another
double
one.
the size of a human, so 10 foot or better.
Yep, that one there. Double rows of teeth.
Okay.
Are you happy? This is our map of Nebraska, which I've only had up for a couple years. And if you watch the documentaries on TV, the good ones, what they usually say is they follow the rivers. And I know that is 100% true. Because if you look, this is the Missouri River. This is South Dakota, Iowa, Nebraska, and Kansas. And the Missouri, you can see, as I said, if you follow it, it goes all the way along the border of South Dakota and Nebraska. And up here, where our Bigfoot guy is, that is where the Black Hills are. So you can see there's sightings the whole way. And then if you come down here, this is our Platte River, the main river running east and west across Nebraska. And the whole length of the Platte, which starts down here in Colorado, there are sightings there. This is Lincoln right here, and there's a little creek that runs right straight through the center of Lincoln going north, and that is called Salt Creek. So there's lots more sightings in Lincoln than any other place in the entire state of Nebraska, which I thought was a little strange. And Garrison is right here. It's only about 20 miles from Lincoln. And then, if you come down here, this is where Hastings is. We're only 14 miles from the Platte. And for the forest people, 14 miles is nothing. That's a Sunday afternoon stroll. But where we live right here, we are surrounded by the Big Blue River and the Little Blue. And it's kind of a C shape like this. This is the Big Blue. We're right here in the center. And the Little Blue is another C, only it's on the bottom. And so if you look, we're in the center of this. That's why we have a lot of sightings here. There's lots of water, there's salt, there's plenty of places to live, there's lots of deer for lunch, plus raccoons, possums, snakes, turtles, crawdads, fish, and in the summer there's all kinds of fruit. There's apple trees, cherry trees, carrots, tomatoes, they don't like tomatoes, potatoes, all kinds of fruit and corn on the cob, they like that. All kinds of fruit and vegetables that are around us. So they don't have to leave. They don't have to leave Nebraska in the winter. And plus, as you drive across Nebraska, especially if you get off of the highways and the interstate, and just get on some of the little gravel roads that also follow the rivers, that's where you would have the best luck of, if you want to go squatching or camping or hiking, that's where I would go. First look on the map, check and see where the rivers are. And another thing is that we always do is I point out, we've got lots of pictures of the structures that the Bigfoot make. And they make things like a huge big, like a teepee or an A. They make really, really big X's. They make arches. They'll bend the trees over the saplings. And when they're a sapling, they're green and they'll break or bend easy so they don't break. So they'll bend one over and then they'll take a log and lay it across. So this tree down here will never ever stand up straight, ever, because of the log on top of it. And many, many times when they make an arch, this tree on the bottom will keep on growing. And we've got pictures of some where what used to be the top is now in the ground, and so now it's got a whole new root system here. So they've got roots on what used to be the bottom and roots on the top, and then the whole tree just keeps growing. And so it's really quite a phenomenon to see, but that's the way they do things. And when you're 8, 10, 12 feet tall, and you weigh 6, 7, 8, 900 pounds, it's probably fairly easy to do. So anyway, that's why we like this map of Nebraska. And the last thing I would point out is this is the Republican River. And it is kind of the border of between Nebraska and Kansas. And so again, all along the Republican, there are sightings of Bigfoot. Not so many on the map here and not too many up there because those are really small little farm towns and they don't have a lot of population. And so it's so much easier if you see one, do not ever report it, ever. So out of all the Bigfoot sightings like there, only 1 out of 10 is ever reported, because if you report a Bigfoot sighting, you're setting yourself up, because you will be called either a liar, you'll be called crazy, or you'll be called a hoaxer, or all three, which I am really used to. After so many years, I don't care. But that's what happens, and that's why people don't report. And I've had lots of people that come here, and I think that they feel like this is a safe site because they say to me things like, I knew I could tell you, that I'm not going to laugh or ridicule them or call them names or anything. So, anyway, all of this fits together. Some things, I don't know for sure how it fits. My gut just says it fits. And so, I used a lot of this information when I wrote this book because I wanted it to be accurate, 100% accurate. I double-checked every single thing that I learned. and I made corrections. So, all of the weird things that happened in Garrison, where the flag was, many things happened for 2 weeks before Memorial Day. Really weird things. And that particular 2 weeks, they had rainstorms every single day for 2 weeks, almost 2 or 3 inches of rain every day. When that Friday came, just like that, no rain, none. No rain, no wind, no hail. It was perfect. The temperature was about 73 or 4 that whole long weekend. And that was when all of these weird things were going on. But that's a really little town. It only had 54 people in it. And, you know, a lot of the people, they were gone to work in the daytime. A lot of the houses there are empty. And those people didn't communicate a lot like with their next door neighbors. So nobody knew what was going on. And the people that were in the farms, they were a couple miles away from the people in town. So nobody knew all these weird things were happening until the flag. That was like the culmination of everything. And so when I went to Garrison to see the flag the first time, people just kept coming and coming and coming to the little blue bar, and the owner had given me a table here, and I was writing notes of what these people were saying, which is in the book now. And so I thought I had really investigated that, every single thing I could possibly think of. I put in this book, and every chapter I said, you know what? I gave you the information here. Now you can make up your own mind. I felt that way then, and I do now. So a few months after I got my book, a man came to walk through the museum. Nice looking man, well dressed, had a nice sports shirt on, nice pair of slacks, and he walked through the museum, and he was really complimentary about it, and I said, thank you. And he walked up to me and he said, Harriet, I'm the sheriff of Butler County. And I said, oh, okay. Butler County is where Garrison is. And he said to me, I heard that you were writing a book. And I said, yeah, I've been working on it for, it seemed like my whole life. But anyway, I said, yes, that's right. And he said, well, I came to tell you that your book is not accurate. And I couldn't imagine, why would he say that? I had worked so hard and interviewed so many people, and I went home with a lot of people, and I took pictures there, everything I could think of. And he said, no, it's not accurate. And that caught me completely off guard. And so I said to him, why do you say that? He said, because this story doesn't go back 2 weeks, like you said. And I said to him, every person that I interviewed, they said, this has been happening the last 2 weeks. I said, I wrote down every single thing that they said verbatim. And then I came back and interviewed him 2 more times because I thought it was so far out for me. I thought, it just can't be right. And the sheriff said, no, it's not right. It doesn't go back 2 weeks. And I just couldn't understand it. And I said, that's what they told me. He said, no, the story goes back 30 years. And I said, 30 years? Are you kidding me? He said, nope. He said, I know because I've been the sheriff there for 30 years. And every time something weird happens there, people panic. And then they call the sheriff's department. And then this sheriff, he would go out and he would investigate whatever it was. And then he would write up a crime report. The date, the time, the temperature, the location, the people that were involved, and then describe what the situation was. That's what I do when I do an investigation for a sheriff or police or whoever. I do it exactly the way they do. I make a copy for the sheriff or whoever. and pictures, if I have any. I give one to him, and I have one for me. And so anyway, he said, it's not correct. And I just couldn't imagine when he said that. And so this is what he told me. On the map, if you look, this is Interstate 80, right here. And this is Highway 81. It runs north and south. If you keep on going south from York, you'll come to Salina, Wichita, and Oklahoma City. He said, so this is Stromsburg. If you go 14 miles,
I can take care of this.
if you go 14 miles straight east of Stromsburg, right there is Garrison. And then if you go from Garrison back to York, it's right here. So it's a triangle. He said, that's where all the activity is. It's that triangle. It's like the Bermuda Triangle. 30 years, all of these weird things have been going on there. And the people, like I said, they panicked, and they called the sheriff, and he did a report. And that was so shocking to me. And he said, I will give you some of my reports. He said, I've still got them in my files. And he said, I will give them to you on the condition that you have to keep the people's anonymity. And I said, I will definitely do that. Because I can say whatever happened around York, I don't have to say this is Joe Blow's house, he lives at XYZ address. I can just say this was an incident that happened near York. That's all people need to know. So he sent me some of his investigation reports, which I included in my book. And as it turned out, when people in that area learned of this, a lot of them wrote their own story in longhand and mailed it to me, or they texted to me, or they called me. And so now I've got all these other stories that go back 30 years. And that was just, I could hardly process it. And I said to the sheriff, it's got to be a clan that lives there. This couldn't be just one individual going here, there, here. And I said, it could be branches of the same family. There could be a family here, maybe the male or female or couple kids at Stromsburg. That would be easy. You only have to go 14 miles, and there's the one by the cemetery. That could be 2 or 3 people, and even back at York. It could be easy. And 14 miles for those forest people, it's not anything. That is conceivable that they could do it.
All right, just to wrap up here, because we're completely out of time and we're running over. You showed the newspaper report from 1917.
Yes.
The sheriff says the events in that county have been going on 30 years. That's how long he's been sheriff.
Yes.
What was happening before that? We don't know. This could have been going on there the whole time.
It could have been going on for 500 years.
Okay.
We don't know.
We don't know.
But there may be a new book in the works. I don't know.
But in the meantime, I strongly encourage all of you to get the book that's already available and come over here and check out the Bigfoot Museum, which not only has Bigfoot artifacts and information in it, but we just had a Bigfoot encounter sort of, or incident here last night, and we just pulled fingerprints off the windows of Christie's rental car first thing this morning, and I already showed you guys where they are now in the museum. And how many Bigfoot museums are so cool that there's Bigfoot incidents happening at the museum? This is the only one I know of. So it behooves you to show up and check out the museum. And don't forget the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference, which he puts on every year. It's in April. It's around the range of the 20-something part of the month. This year it was 22nd, what was it?
23rd.
23rd, 24th?
No, not 24th. 22nd and
22nd,
23rd.
23rd. Okay. Well, thanks for telling us about the flag braiding and showing us your book, and I encourage everybody to go out and get it. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks for being with us, Harriet.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.